All right, everybody, this is Dr. Dan, and we are moving on in BME 245L. So we're finished with the cell culture, but now we're going to do some mechanical testing. And so the first thing we want to do is get some material to test, right? And so I want to test some biological material. And so I just bought some chicken at HEB, and we're going to test some of the mechanical properties of both the bone in these chicken legs and also the tendons in the chicken legs. I think I might, even if I have time, go ahead and cut some strips of muscle and skin as well. Just in case I have some time, I can do some mechanical testing on those just so we have something to compare things to. So this is a very safe thing, right? This is as if we were doing this in our kitchen, right? You could buy chicken at HEB and get ready to cook it. But I do want to be careful. The scalpel is going to be very sharp. It's typically sharper than a kitchen knife. And we're not cooking the chicken, and so, it's going to have some pathogens. Chicken oftentimes has salmonella on it, and so we're going to want to make sure we clean up really well with bleach, wash our hands, soap and water, make sure we wash everything that touches it so we don't propagate that anywhere. But other than that, it's just like cutting open chicken at home. We're going to go ahead and just throw it in the normal trash, just like you would at home, and then take it, just as long as we take it out today and not wait 3 weeks until it starts to rot. The other thing we do that's kind of special with this is that I'm going to do the dissection today, and I'm going to do the mechanical testing in a couple days. And so in order to facilitate that, we're going to store this in the freezer. But we don't want to just freeze our tissue, because that will cause ice crystals, and that will actually change the mechanical properties of the tissue. So when we freeze it in a mixture of half glycerol and half PBS. And so the PBS obviously is the natural environment where the tissue would be in. Glycerol, so when we put this in the freezer, we dilute it with glycerol, 50-50. It will actually make sure this remains a liquid. And so it will stay at minus 20 degrees C, but not freeze. And so that way we preserve the chicken in the freezer and not let it rot. But it doesn't freeze and ruin the mechanical properties. And so if we just left this in the refrigerator, chicken goes bad in the refrigerator after several days. So we couldn't do that. So that's why we need to stick it in the freezer. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and do 4 pieces here because I need 4 bones so that I can test 4 bones. And then I'm just going to get a bunch of tendons and the skin of the chicken out. Some of you may find this rather gross, but it's how you get your meat if you eat meat. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just cut off the skin. Okay, so I might try to save some of the skin. So you also have some fascia along which is interesting, right? We can maybe mechanically test that too if we wanted, that's holding the muscle together. But if we really want to get to the tendon, there's even a tendon right there. You can see this white thing has showed up. There's one of our tendons. So the best way to get to the tendons is just make a good longitudinal cut down along the bone. Just start to peel the muscle back. And so remember, the tendons will attach the muscle to the bone. That's a good long tendon that would be nice to save. Okay, so I'm going to have to cut some muscle off of that, but there's a good tendon. Okay, a couple more tendons I kind of cut off on this end down here. And actually, the tendons are what's holding this thing together. There's another good one. That's a little short tendon. It's probably not a good one to mechanically test because it's so short. I do want to get as much of this off of the bone as possible so we can have a nice long piece of bone to mechanically test as well. And you can see how easily the scalpel just cuts through the bone there, so it's very sharp. I think that was his ACL I just cut. So I want you to know I'm always being careful to make sure I'm cutting away from me, never cutting back toward me. All right, so there is a bone, and so we're going to use the bone saw to cut a decent segment of this out so we can do mechanical testing of it. But in the meantime, we also have all these tendons we need to find in the muscle tissue. And you can see there's a bunch down here coming out. So we just want to find some good, long, nice tendons. Okay, that's a pretty good one right there. So I'm going to want like a consistent cross-sectional area for the test section. So I'm going to cut that down there. But I can also use a little bit more with some muscle for when I grip it in the grips of the mechanical tester. So something like that is fine. That's a good tendon right there. Okay, let's go back to this one. Yeah, I'm being pretty careful not to cut the tendon, but to get the muscle off as best I can. Okay, and again, at some point, we're just going to go ahead and take the muscle too so that we have something to grab onto. You can even see all the tendons in here that I can get at as I pull them up through the leg. Looks like there's a nice big one I want to find. It may be too short though. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pretty good tendons out of this. You can see there is a lot more in here. Varying levels of integration with the muscle. And right, each of these tendons probably has specific mechanical properties. We're just kind of treating them all as, this is a leg tendon. Okay, and so I was going to get the muscle and I mentioned that. I think it'll be a little bit difficult. Oh, look at that. I just did a little cut on my glove, which is not a good thing. So I'm going to change gloves in a second. I'm just trying to peel off some of the muscle to see. Yeah, I'm not going to bother. It's going to be too difficult to try to go ahead and get any muscle to try to test. So I'm going to go ahead and, I'm going to get rid of this trash in my little trash bag. What I'm going to do is now I want to put these in some glycerol. So I got to change gloves because I cut my glove anyway. But I also want to change gloves so that when I touch this stuff, I don't want chicken all over it. So let's go ahead and get some glycerol in there. I think if I put about 30 mils in, that'll be enough. Should be plenty for all my tendons. I'm probably going to need 2 containers for bones, but I do need to cut the bones. So that's what I'm going to show you guys next. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and drop the tendons in here so they don't dry out too much. And now I'm going to go ahead and and so what I'll do is I'll show you how to cut the bone over here on the bone saw, and then I'll go ahead and get the rest, and you don't have to see video of that. But you can do this at home, right? You can go get some chicken. I mean, this was less than $4 for 5 pieces of chicken HEB. You guys could go ahead and dissect out like the different parts. I mean, it's kind of fun to think of, like, especially if you're into anatomy, right? The anatomy of the chicken leg is right there. This one had the partial knee attached, right? So it's kind of cool to look at all that stuff if you're interested.